to go to Havre as a child. Well, then every few years I would go out with them, like together a slideshow, going back in time, from 2015 going backwards to 1965. Now we're going to go back to 1970, right after the BN merger. Now I was riding out SDP 45, a couple of F units, and riding out. This was a seat I would get on right in Minneapolis. I would first seat in the dome on the right side, and I'd stay there all night because it's always a lot of fun to watch the signals and see what's going on. This is the diesel shop, and they F units and GP40s and SD45s, and then they added, after the merger, they added this these two extra stalls there for additional maintenance, and the roundhouse, the old roundhouse, is in back. Here's a brand new F45 that arrived.
Beautiful.
And here's an F45 and SD45. Back then, I think they still may be doing it, but these are parts for the that were built for the 747. They built at their plant in Wichita, wing parts and stuff like that, and they would haul them to from Kansas down there all the way, and they had a special route because of course these things are oversized. Now back then, Great Falls was the biggest city in Montana, so they would run an RDC from the Empire Builder down. Each day it would go down and back. They used to run an E unit with several cars, but then traffic was down, so they just used an RDC. The builder generally met at that time right west of town. Whichever the eastbound or westbound, whichever one got to Havre first would go into the station, and then they would meet. So this is the eastbound, here comes the westbound. So now the westbound's headed out. And here's the typical freight train, 1970. Here's our another brand new F45 with a Burlington SD24, Northern Pacific SD45, and a Great Northern GP9. F45, a couple SD45s. Those are pretty much the standard power. Now here's the Amtrak with the SDP40 and a couple Fs. They obviously figured out they needed about 6,000 horsepower. So when they bought the SD40s and 45s, that they could use two of them or one of those and two F units. Now here's the train depot. And after the merger, this is a Spokane, Portland, Seattle F9. And it, so power was going all over the system. This is from the Bluff, couple of standard freight coming in, going into town. And lots of different paint schemes. Here's a Great Northern U33, a Burlington GP40, and a BN. What is that? The GP35.
35, yeah.
Here's the westbound builder coming out. There's the builders passing each other. So the eastbound arrived first. It's done its business. Now it's heading out of town. Here comes the westbound. Excuse me, the westbound arrived first, and here comes the eastbound into town. So there were a lot of different colors at that time, but of course mostly boxcars.
So by the time you're in the 80s, you haven't started seeing very many containers yet.
No.
When did they first come in? 90s, 2000?
Yeah, I think 80s. And then 80s. I think you're right. Here's a couple SD45s. Yeah, this was all trailers at this time. So here's an almost blue. At least part of the train was blue, but it's clean. If it's clean, it looks nice. But boy, it gets dirty. Really, it shows the dirt more. So here's the diesel shop, and there's the this is the final paint scheme. And this is the Burlington paint scheme, which is white, and white is not not a good color, as the Sioux line would tell you. Okay,
As a Kansas City
1965.
Southern would tell you.
What'd you say?
Kansas City Southern too.
Oh
They
yeah, when they
white,
had
the
pure
tiny
white,
little
that
letters.
was.
Yeah, that was a disaster.
So here's the diesel shop in 1965. GP20, GP30, and some GP30s, F7s. Here's an NW2, and then here's the roundhouse back here, and of course the big water tank for the steam locomotives. This is a number 82 or 83, excuse me, going westbound. With this is a GP20, that's a GP 35, and that's GP30. So that's what the Great North. That's pretty new power back then. So here's a GP30. Here's a U25B.
25B, yeah.
This is actually the this one right here is the first one I'd ever seen. I went down, walked down, if you can imagine, just wander down to the diesel shop. Nobody says anything. They say hi. And as long as you don't climb the units, they were very friendly. But this was, I walked over and it says General Electric, and it said Universal Series. And I remember that was the first General Electric unit I'd seen. But it had a lot of features. It was the first time they ever pressurized the hood and put filters on. And that turned out to be a really good thing, kept the dirt out of the generator and the diesel. So that's typical. This is number 82. U25B, GP35, U25B, and a GP20. Got an eastbound. There's another westbound, so similar units. The New York Central and the Great Northern got big into turquoise. If you remember, turquoise was very big back in the 60s, and those are actually not. I think they're pretty nice looking grain car. They had a bunch of these, and then they had a bunch of gray ones too.
Yeah.
So here's typical units in the 60s. This is the original paint scheme, and then when they got the new units, they realized the stripes weren't going to work and everything, and this orange would get dirty, so they simplified the paint scheme on the Great Northern.
Mhm.
So here's the diesel shop here, and I'm standing right by the turntable. Now this is a harbinger of things to come. A GP35 and a GP7 coming in with an oil train. Now these are obviously the small cars, but it's the same. That's coming out of the Tioga oil field in western North Dakota by Stanley in that area, and lots of oil cars. Because they'd only built some pipelines, and they were still hauling a lot of oil by train, and now they're doing it again. So this was just repainted, GP9.
Are they still running a lot of oil
Yes, yes.
via rail?
Because it's hard to build pipelines, and also the refiners, the guy in the energy industry told me that the refineries like to be able to send it. Well, let's send this one to New Jersey, and then let's send this one down to Kentucky. And so it costs a little more, but it gives them flexibility.
Sure.
And so
Okay.
they like that aspect. And right now, I mean, that whole pipeline they were going to build from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico got axed. So I don't think they'll ever build it, because it's just too difficult. And the record on leaky pipelines hasn't been too great. So this was a caboose hop heading east out of town on a Sunday afternoon. And what the guy told me there was that they're going to drop these units off at various towns in eastern Montana and western North Dakota, and then they go up and service all the grain elevators during the week.
Mm.
And here comes the builder coming in. Now that's the old Great Northern builder, and here they are. Still a lot of people at the depot. Some things never change. And they're switching the power again, so they'll take the 4 units off and send them to the house. And then they put 4 fresh units on, and they wash the windows and clean them up. This was a new caboose. I don't know who built these. Might be International Car, but the several of the railroads went to these streamlined cabooses, and eventually, of course, they went to the International Car and the extended vision. Yeah, this one. This is an international car. And then International Car came up with the idea of extending the vision so you have the benefits of a bay window, but also a cupola.
Right.
Now, Great Northern painted a lot of their whole hoppers red. Of course, they didn't stay red very long. So here's an F9 in the original scheme. Here's an F3 456A and an NW2 built in the late 40s. And there's the diesel shop in the afternoon. Lots of Fs and a few GP30s and GP35s coming in, but it's still pretty much older power. And that's it for Havre.